Chapter 21. Xian Zihao were looking for her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As long as they were not married, they were strangers. Jiang Rulan did not say anything. She looked at Xiong Rugang's shimmering face and suddenly put the manuscript in her hand. When you go back, organize these. You must report the details in half an hour. Oh. Xiong Rugang raised her hand and scratched her head as she accepted her fate and read the newspaper clippings in her hand carefully. At 3 p.m., while the two of them were busy writing a report on the incident, the phone on Jiang Rulan's desk rang. She, on the other hand, was too busy to answer the call. Xiong Rugang happened to pass by with a number of items in her hand, and when she saw Jiang Rulan was busy and could not receive the call, she took the call for her. Hello. Is this a Qin magazine company? When Xiong Rugang heard a voice on the other end of the phone, she was momentarily stunned. Her mouth trembled as she looked towards Jiang Rulan. Sister Jiang, I think someone is looking for you. Hearing the strangeness in Xiong Rugang's voice, Jiang Rulan looked at her indifferently. What's up? Who's calling? Xiong Rugang, on the other hand, held the phone in amazement. She blinked and whispered, I really got a call from Xian Zihao. Suddenly, some female colleagues looked towards them. Jiang Rulan frowned, clearly not believing that Xian Zihao did not have her cell phone number. She grabbed the phone and put it on her ear. Hello. Jiang Rulan, come to my company. Ha. She thought she had misheard him. Immediately go to Xian Group, I'll give you 10 minutes. Crack, the call ended. Only then did Jiang Rulan recover from her shock. She looked at the phone in surprise. It was really Xian Zihao. But why did he call her office number? Astonished, Jiang Rulan looked at the jealous women gathered around her. Inwardly, she rolled her eyes. She knew that Xian Zihao was not so different. She took out her cell phone and realizing that the battery was running out. Jiang Rulan quickly packed her things and news clippings before walking out of the office. She did not know why Xian Zihao was looking for her. Maybe he had something urgent to discuss with me. Jiang Rulan did not think too much and went downstairs to find a taxi. Although she left her office quickly, in the end, she faced traffic jams. It took her about half an hour to arrive at Xian Group. She quickly explained her situation to the receptionist. The receptionist called someone to inquire about the appointment while she politely smiled at her. Miss Jiang, please wait for a moment. Secretary Du will come down to receive you soon. Secretary Du, Jiang Rulan was puzzled. Moments later, a man in his 30s in black clothes came out of the elevator. He saw her standing in the lobby on the first floor and slowly approached her. Miss Jiang, sorry for making you wait so long. It doesn't matter. President Xian told me to come here half an hour ago, but I was stuck in a traffic jam. I tried to call him but he did not answer. Where is his office? Chapter 22. A busy man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's like this. President Xian waited for you half an hour ago, but he should be at the airport now. He had an important meeting in Beijing tonight, so Miss Jiang, you can come back when President Xian returned. Secretary Du said with a smile. I was only 20 minutes late and he already left. Jiang Rulan finds it hard to believe. You never know, President Xian is usually very busy, so he has a very precise time concept. Since you are late and he still has other things to do, of course, he will not wait for you. Miss Jiang, please wait for him to return first. When will he be back? Secretary Du paused for a moment. Although the meeting in Beijing tonight is very important, it will not be long. He will come back in the evening on the plane, but by the time he gets back to his office, it should be past 2 a.m. Then I will wait for him in his office. Miss Jiang. After all, I was the one who was late, so it was right for me to wait for him. Secretary Du looked at her. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and said, "All right, President Xian told me what he needed Miss Jiang to do before he left. It would be nice if you stayed here and did the press release he asked for." Secretary Du led Jiang Rulan to Xian Zihao's office. While items on tables, chairs, and even sofas and bookshelves were all expensive, not much can be found in such a large office. It was a modest office with simple furniture, but looked very comfortable, especially the wide, bright French windows on the left. One can look out the window when he was tired, and he will actually see a building with the city center logo, as well as a view of the congested streets. Jiang Rulan inevitably wonders what it felt like every time Xian Zihao stood here and looked at the endless flow of cars and traffic in the city, covering more than 60% of the city's real estate and business. This is information that President Xian ordered you to include in the press release. Secretary Du handed over the documents. Jiang Rulan took it and flipped through it. "I know what to do now. Do you need help?" "No need, I will do it myself. I came in a hurry and did not bring my laptop, but since I have a lot of time now, I can help rearrange everything before tomorrow's news update." "Thank you." As Secretary Du left, Jiang Rulan glanced at the computer on the table, doubting how many secrets were in it and whether she should touch it or not. Suddenly, Secretary Du brought a laptop for her to use. Jiang Rulan smiled gratefully at him. Chapter 23. Fell asleep. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At 2:30 in the morning, when Xian Zihao opened his office door, his eyes froze slightly. At a glance, he saw a slender figure in the corner of the sofa. Because the air conditioner was too cold, Jiang Rulan curled into a ball. It was obvious that Secretary Du had already told him about her presence, so he was not too surprised to see her. However, he did not think that this woman would actually rearrange the night press release and sleep in his office. Xian Zihao walked to the sofa and glanced at Jiang Rulan's calm face as she slept. He also glanced at the script prepared on the computer. She really could sleep anywhere. Basically, no one can enter his office casually and without his permission. This woman actually used his office as her bedroom, and she also sleeps soundly. Xian Zihao unbuttoned his suit jacket and placed it on Jiang Rulan's body. She moved a little in her sleep. Xian Zihao lowered his eyes to see her lashes fluttering as if she was about to get up. But after a few movements, she stopped moving. He sighed and walked around the table. He entered the data he had brought back into his computer and spent the night learning the new plan that had been approved. When Jiang Rulan woke up, it was already morning. She got up from the sofa and looked at the time. It's actually over 9 o'clock. Shocked, she quickly got up to go to work when she suddenly saw a jacket slip into her lap. "Are you awake?" The office door opened and Secretary Du entered. Seeing Jiang Rulan stared at the jacket, he walked with a smile. "President Xian came back last night. Miss Jiang, you are very dedicated. You did your job quickly." Xian Zihao came back. Jiang Rulan was shocked and said in surprise, "Heaven, I actually fell asleep here. Is President Xian angry?" "Miss Jiang did not sleep all night to finish writing. It's understandable that you fell asleep. Why would he be angry?" Secretary Du smiled warmly. "Then where is he now?" Ji Rulan suddenly remembered her manuscript and she quickly turned on the computer on the tea table. After a moment, she sighed in relief. "Luckily, I had it ready last night." Having said that, she looked at Secretary Du who was smiling at her. Jiang Rulan lowered her head and looked at the shirt jacket in her hand. She gently placed it on the couch, then began compiling the manuscript. "I was an hour late for work, so I had to rush back to the company. You will not wait for President Xian." Jiang Rulan glanced at him. Looked like Secretary Du had seen the news. It was clear that he knew about her relationship with Xian Zihao. No wonder she was allowed to be relaxed in the CEO office. She no longer hesitated and continued packing her things. He was so busy yesterday and rushed back to H City last night. Shouldn't he go back and rest? I won't wait for him. I have to go back to the company. President Xian was in his office last night to deal with a plan he brought home from Beijing and did not return to rest. Currently, he is in the conference room on the second floor, meeting with several directors. Also, Miss Jiang, we have contacted your company and you get a day off today. Chapter 24. Jiang Bingqing, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Binov Com Jiang Rulan continued to put some manuscripts in the bag. After thinking for a moment, she said, anyway, I have completed what President Xian ordered me to do, so there is no need for me to wait for him. Thank you, Secretary Du. Seeing her insistence, Secretary Du did not stop her. When Jiang Rulan arrived at the lobby on the first floor, she checked in her ID card and left the company. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly heard a commotion behind her and turned to see the source of the noise. She saw several company directors who had completed their meeting walk out of the elevator, but there were no signs of Xian Zihao. It can be seen that Secretary Du only politely urged her to stay not on Xian Zihao's instructions. Realizing what she was thinking, Jiang Rulan couldn't help but laugh as she turned and walked out of the building. If it weren't for Han Shuigang's scheme, she would definitely not have a relationship with a man like Xian Zihao, whose status was so high that it could shine. In that case, it was good enough that he did not see her as a woman who was good at acting, and she was grateful that he did not use the most direct and cruel way to make her disappear from this world. Could it be that she was relying on him to have a good effect on herself? Ah, she no longer dreamed of being Cinderella. It was already 9:30 a.m. when she rushed to the company. Jiang Rulan lowered her head and walked forward, noticing the unfamiliar car parked in front of the company. Jiang Rulan, you are really capable enough. Even a man like Xian Zihao can be tempted by a little vixen like you. A familiar voice was heard from behind her. Jiang Rulan stopped and looked at the woman in surprise. A nightmare from 7 years ago once again appeared in her eyes. She looked at Jiang Bingqing, who was wearing an expensive dress and was standing in front of a white Audi car with a mocking expression. Seeing the shock in Jiang Rulan's eyes, Jiang Bingqing walked one step towards him. She gracefully stood in front of her, arrogantly lifting her sexy lips and laughing coldly while mocking her. What? You did not expect to see me again. Although Jiang Rulan was shocked, she quickly calmed down. She glanced at Jiang Bingqing before turning to look at the car. Madame Jiang was nowhere to be seen. Jiang Rulan gave her a puzzled glance. Why are you here? I went with my mother to H City to visit relatives, and who would have thought that I would see the news about you in the newspaper. After 7 years of not seeing you, you really look like a shameless woman. You dare to crawl into anyone's bed. Jiang Bingqing looked at Jiang Rulan in disgust. I just checked in with someone and found out that you work here. Why? Aren't you going to be the CEO's wife? To work in a place like this? Looks like I guessed it right. You really used shameless methods to get into Xian Zihao's bed, forcing him to pretend that you are his fiancée in front of the media. Faced with this woman's mockery, Jiang Rulan had long been accustomed. She looked at Jiang Bingqing's usual noble and proud look with an expressionless face. Miss Jiang doesn't need to care about my matters. If there's nothing else, I'm going to work. As she spoke, she turned and was about to enter the company door. Jiang Rulan, you shameless bastard. Do not dream of climbing the Xian family. Let me tell you, I have known Xian Zihao for a long time. He is my best friend's childhood sweetheart. In terms of family background, Xian Zihao wouldn't even spare you a glance. Don't think you can get into a man's bed like that shameless mother of yours. The Xian family is not like our Jiang family, and Xian Zihao is not a coward like your father. Why don't you follow in your mother's footsteps and commit suicide? Do you know that a shameless bitch like you only polluting the air? Chapter 25. Have you said enough? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiang Bingqing's voice was very loud. Her voice was almost heard by everyone on the ground floor of the office. She deliberately scolded her loudly. Jiang Rulan ignored the curious head peeking out of the window. She clenched her fists tightly, while her pale face stared at Jiang Bingqing's arrogant face. Have you said enough? No. Jiang Rulan took a deep breath and tried to hold back the anger in her heart with all her might. She did not want to waste any more time with her. I'm warning you, stay away from Xian Zihao. If not, do not blame me for standing up for my best friend and letting you live a miserable life. Since you appeared in my life, when have I ever had a good day? What else do you want? Let me be humiliated. Or do you want me to die without a complete corpse? Jiang Rulan suddenly stopped in her tracks and turned around. Step by step, she approached Jiang Bingqing. Jiang Bingqing was stunned. Looking at the frost in Jiang Rulan's eyes, she couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Her eyes were filled with astonishment. You warned me. What right do you have to warn me? I left the Jiang family 7 years ago, and no longer appear in front of you and your so-called mother. I didn't even bother to fight the so-called Jiang family inheritance with you. What else do you want from me? It's been 7 years. 7 years and I still can't get rid of the nightmare that you, Jiang Bingqing, gave me. Let me tell you, Jiang Rulan right now was no longer Jiang Rulan in the past that you can be scolded and beaten. Jiang Rulan raised her hand and pointed to the side of the road. You will not let me live a good life, will you? Go. Go ask your friend in Black Society to kidnap me again. Let them inject me with stimulants and be almost raped by a group of old men. Hurry up and go. Isn't that the method you used before? Jiang Rulan, who are you yelling at? Jiang Bingqing did not think Jiang Rulan knew that she was the one who planned the incident 7 years ago. She quickly retreated a few steps back, her eyes filled with caution. The distance between the two of them was only 6 or 7 meters. Then she reluctantly scolded. You have the nerve to bring up that matter by yourself. If it wasn't for Jiang Yijuan and Gengxin saving you back then, you would have already been happy under those old men. Shameless daughter of Guanyu, aren't you as cheap as your mother? The same type of person who likes to be played by men. I was just trying to help you. Sister Jiang, what happened? Xiong Rugang ran hurriedly and stood next to Jiang Rulan with concern written all over her face. She looked at her red eyes and asked, Sister Jiang. Jiang Bingqing, who was already standing next to the car, once again warned her. Jiang Rulan, let's wait and see. With that, she got into the white Audi and quickly drove away. Sister Jiang. Xiong Rugang carefully held Jiang Rulan's hand and was surprised to find her hand cold. Her fingernails almost pierced her palm. Sister Jiang. Your hands. Jiang Rulan snapped out of her daze and released her clenched fist. I'm fine. She lowered her eyes and glanced at the bloody palm, then turned to walk to the company. Sister Jiang, let me send you to the hospital. You need to treat your wounds. Xiong Rugang looked at her with a sad expression. Come with me to the hospital, Sister Jiang. Did you hear that too? Jiang Rulan stopped walking. The hand that gripped her, Jiang Rulan, hand did not go away. With a warm smile on her face, Xiong Rugang said softly, Sister Jiang, everyone will be by your side. Jiang Rulan felt her mood become sour. She lowered her head with a bitter smile, I thought I could forget. Xiong Rugang knew Jiang Rulan wanted to be alone for a while, so she did not follow her and stood outside the elevator while looking at her anxiously. When the elevator door closed, Jiang Rulan leaned in the corner and raised her head to hold back the tears that were about to fall. The past, the pain she did not want to remember, the constant insults and beatings from her childhood, and the nightmares she would never forget for the rest of her life at the age of 17, all played in her mind. In the end, she still could not escape this fate. Chapter 26. Has she caused trouble? You are listening at novelfull.audio. After work, Jiang Rulan wandered the streets like a lonely soul. Overwhelmed by the memory, she accidentally collided with the person in front of her. Her heels immediately sank in the crevice of the rock. She cried out in alarm as she couldn't control her falling body. Instinctively, she reached out her hand in an attempt to grab something in the air, but to no avail. The person she hit quickly supported her before she fell to the ground. Thank you. Jiang Rulan pulled her heels out of the cracks and hurriedly apologized to the man. Sorry, I didn't pay full attention just now. When she saw the man's face, she stopped talking. Under the dim yellow light, Jiang Rulan blinked in surprise. The man looked at her calmly. His tightly pursed lips moved and he said, I'm fine. At the same time, he withdrew his hand and walked away quickly. Jiang Rulan, on the other hand, looked at the man in shock. Her instincts told her that he was familiar, but she did not remember where she had seen him before. This person was tanned and wore black clothes, giving a very dominant feeling. She continued to look at the figure who had disappeared with suspicion. The man looked really familiar. Jiang Rulan still remembered when she raised her head to look into his eyes, she could detect a feeling of surprise in him. He knows her. When she entered her house, Jiang Rulan was shocked by the chaos in the living room. She looked at Jiang Yijuan, who was cleaning up the mess on the floor, and asked, what happened? She rushed to her bedroom and saw the door was also completely open. However, her account book and cash in the closet were untouched. Jiang Rulan frowned. If it was not the job of a thief, then who? She turned to the silent Jiang Yijuan. What exactly happened? I went to the library this afternoon, and when I came back, it was like this. He walked towards her while holding a crystal necklace. I think they were looking for this. That was something that the Jiang family always wanted to look for. Jiang Rulan never knew what was special about this necklace, but her mother had given it to her before she died. She knew she had to keep it safe. Jiang Rulan glanced at the necklace, then saw the cold in Jiang Yijuan's eyes. You mean? Jiang family was in H City, wasn't it? Jiang Yijuan narrowed his eyes. When I returned, I saw Jiang Bingqing driving her car from the parking lot. How did she find this place? Jiang Rulan mumbled in an aggressive manner but said nothing. Did Jiang Bingqing go to your company to find you? Has she gone to cause trouble for you again? Seeing her expression, Jiang Yijuan narrowed the distance and looked at her with a threatening look. Did she do something to you? Yijuan, I'm no longer Jiang Rulan from the past. What can she do to me in front of so many people? Jiang Rulan joked and took the necklace. She then looked around at the mess. We can't stay here anymore. We have to move out as soon as possible. We're leaving H City. No, even if we leave here, as long as Jiang family searches, we will still be unable to escape. As she spoke, Jiang Rulan gripped the necklace tightly, the limpid light in her eyes slightly fading. Chapter 27. Untitled. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the next 2 days, Jiang Rulan welcomed all kinds of looks from her colleague. There was the usual admiration, and there was also a mixture of disdain and suspicion. Still, she couldn't lose her job. She had decided to leave F City and go to H City, and now that she had established herself here, it was not easy to find a job that she can easily take care of. Furthermore, the salary here was not low and also very good. So, she calmly smiled at everyone, as if she did not care what everyone thought or what they were discussing privately. Gossip was a topic that women took as an opportunity to entertain themselves. Since the people in this topic was too calm, it was not appropriate for them to discuss what Jiang Bingqing said that day. Only after 2 or 3 days did everything finally calm down. After work, Jiang Rulan packed her things. However, her mind was busy thinking about her marriage with Xian Zihao. The closer the day, the harder it was for her to maintain her composure. She did not know much about Xian Zihao. It can be said that everyone only knew about his family background. The night before, Jiang Ruolin spent the whole night in front of the computer looking for all the information related to him. In addition to the Xian family background, she learned that Xian Zihao was accepted by Harvard University when he was 15 years old because of his high intelligence. At the time, he was the youngest student to enter and his results were very surprising. A year later, he earned venture capital of nearly 10 million by his own efforts and was successfully listed in the United States. In the years that followed, he quickly grew into the top 500, however, when Xian Group Abroad developed, he suddenly returned and handed over his company abroad to his sister, Xian Guoying, to be managed. For the next 5 years, Xian Zihao really followed his grandfather's wishes and took over all the important business in Xian Group. A year ago, when he officially took over as CEO of Xian Group, he was just 20.7 years old. Although he had a pretty good reputation in the business world, Xian Zihao was a humble person. It seemed that in a short period of 20 years, his amazing achievements and past were nothing more than a dream to the eyes. Although there was a lot of news about him and many media personnel considered him a legend, but there was little about his personal life. Chapter 28. Unplanned Meetings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In recent months, because Jiang Ruolin had been paying attention to Xian Zihao and also with the help of the media and Han Shuigang, she had gained some gossip about himself. Xian Zihao was not in the least affected, and only a few days ago the incident happened. Jiang Ruolin knew what kind of person Han Shuigang was. He had ambitions, which means he had the ability, courage, and many tricks on his sleeve. If he dared to lay his hands on the invincible Xian Zihao, that means he must have planned everything thoroughly, both internally and externally. She still remembered Xian Zihao's smile and calm attitude as he faced the media that day. She knew right away that even though he did not speak much that day, every word he said was well thought out. How could she not understand his conversation with Han Shuigang? Indirectly, she had turned into a piece of chess in Xian Zihao's plan. A useful chess piece. First, she had to face Han Shuigang's deception, and then she was caught in the net that Xian Zihao threw. Jiang Ruolin knew that she had been played by both of them, but at the moment, she had no other way out. Regardless of whether it was Ling or Xian family, dealing with her was as easy as crushing an ant. Now, Jiang Bingqing suddenly appeared and had vowed to make her life miserable. Although she did not want to have anything to do with Xian Zihao's plan, she was already stuck in it. At the very least, the interference she and Jiang Yijuan received would be reduced. Instead of being used, she might as take the advantage. They're using each other, aren't they? Before Jiang Ruolin returned home that night, she received a call from the editor.in.chief, asking her to join them for dinner. She didn't want to go, but the editor.in.chief hung up the phone right after saying the address, clearly did not want to hear her rejection. At 7:55 p.m., she arrived at the hotel mentioned by the editor.in.chief. She saw the elevator door about to close. In a hurry, she shouted, "Wait." The elevator door slowly opened and she gratefully ran inside. When Jiang Ruolin was about to thank the people inside, she saw the man and woman in the elevator and immediately swallowed the words that reached her throat. Jiang Ruolin pushed the sunglasses to cover most of her face. The moment she barged in, Xian Zihao's cold gaze met her. Chapter 29. Unplanned Meetings. 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. They both just looked at each other for a moment, before Jiang Ruolin stood behind them. She calmly looked at the couple in front of her, as if they were just two strangers. Xian Zihao also did not look back. Because her sunglasses covered her face, Jiang Ruolin did not know whether he recognized her or not. When the elevator reached the 9th floor, the beautiful woman next to him suddenly smiled and said, "Big brother Zihao, Bingqing said she had not seen you for a long time and she wanted you to treat her a meal today. I wonder if Auntie Jiang also came with her." Jiang Bingqing was also in this hotel. Jiang Rulan's face turned pale, and at the same time, the elevator door opened. A man and a woman who had been carefully sculpted by God walked out. As the elevator door was about to close, Jiang Rulan accidentally raised her head and saw the woman gently shaking Xian Zihao's arm like a spoiled child. Xian Zihao dotingly smiled at her, then gently kissed her forehead. Jiang Rulan's gaze was immediately blocked by the closed elevator door. She took off her sunglasses expressionlessly. I've known Xian Zihao for a long time. He's my best friend's childhood sweetheart. Big brother Zihao, Bing Qing said she had not seen you for a long time and she wanted you to treat her a meal today. I wonder if Auntie Jiang also came with her. Both sentences echoed in her ear, but at this moment Jiang Rulan suddenly recalled the scene. On the 5th day of the new year 7 years ago, she was laying in the snow on the front yard of Jiang Mansion with wounds all over her body. Suddenly, a car stopped in front of her and a pair of long straight legs appeared in front of her. At the time, she was cold and hungry. The injuries were aching all over her body. She tried to ask for help from the man by pulling on his pants. However, the man pulled the legs of his pants and left indifferently. Big brother Zihao, you finally came back from America. Where is Louis Xian? She did not follow you. Jiang Bingqing's sweet voice was heard at the entrance of the Jiang family villa. Jiang Rulan had finally gathered some strength to lift her head, but all she could see was the back of the young man. He was tall and straight, graceful and noble. She thought that he was a god who came down from heaven to save her from her suffering. Who is this girl? The young man's voice was deep and magnetic, but vague. Just ignore her. Jiang Bingqing smiled happily and pulled the young man to the villa. Big brother Zihao, you haven't been to Ji City for a long time. Why didn't you invite Lucien to come with you? The cold that pierced her bones immediately swept all her nerves, and Jiang Rulan's numb heart was immediately wrung by the intense pain. Big brother Zihao. Xian Zihao. So it was him. Chapter 30. Unplanned Meetings 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miss Jiang, please have another drink. On the 10th floor of the hotel, Jiang Rulan was persuaded to drink 2 bottles of spleen wine and half a glass of white wine. Feeling that she was a little drunk, she went out to look for a washroom. Unfortunately, the washroom on the 10th and 11th floors were closed for cleaning. Jiang Rulan had no choice but to hold back the disgusting feeling that appeared in her mouth and rushed to the washroom on the 9th floor. After vomiting non-stop, she finally felt a little relieved. She quickly washed her face and looked at her pale face in the mirror. She took out a tissue from the bag and wiped the water off her face and hands, before leaving the washroom. Just as she was walking out, she met Jiang Bingqing, who was walking towards her. She was frightened and instinctively trying to leave, but Jiang Bingqing had already caught the sight of her with her sharp eyes. Jiang Rulan. Jiang Rulan stopped in her tracks, knowing that she could no longer avoid her. She turned around and met her face to face. What a coincidence! Jiang Bingqing had a contemptuous look on her face. This is the first time I have seen a shameless woman like you. Did you know that Xian Zihao will be here today, and that is why you came here too? Let me tell you, my mother is here too. Stay away from Xian Zihao. If you think so, I can't help it. Jiang Rulan lowered her eyes and turned to leave without further explanation. Stop right there. She stopped. Jiang Rulan, I warn you. If Jiang family can't tolerate you, Xian family won't tolerate with you either. Stop daydreaming. You should know your status. Hand over the crystal necklace my father gave your mother back then, and then immediately scram. I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Seeing that Jiang Rulan just stand there and not talking, Jiang Bingqing suddenly pinched her arm cruelly. You slut! You dare to be arrogant with only a few years of effort. Jiang Rulan, who was initially dizzy from drinking too much, could not bear the pain, so she pushed her. Jiang Bingqing, roughly. Enough. You dare pushed me. Jiang Bingqing stumbled a little. Do you really think you can fight with me just because you've grown a pair of wings? Jiang Bingqing, stepped forward, lifted her, slapped her, Jiang Ruolin, face. Why would such a despicable person like you act so holy and noble towards me? A bitch is a bitch. You dare to snatch someone's man. You dare to climb into someone's bed. Jiang Bingqing wanted to slap her again, but this time, Jiang Ruolin was prepared and raised her hand to block, but someone quickly grabbed her, Jiang Bingqing, wrist.